Would you still do stuff even if you didn't have to? Hey up, I'm Ember, and today we're going to talk about work. A few weeks ago, I made a short video about my experience as an autistic hospitality worker. I didn't mean to make that video.
We've gone on holiday by mistake!
I started writing ideas for a TikTok and then just kept writing. I discussed one job in particular and why I quite liked it. Why many aspects of the role were, albeit unintentionally, autism-friendly. And you guys flooded the comments with stories about jobs that you liked. Jobs which turned out to be accessible to you as autistic or otherwise disabled workers. And I thought that was super interesting. When I showed my friends, they pointed out that this shows that people do actually enjoy working. And they're right. And by all accounts, barista isn't up there among society's most celebrated jobs. But it was a good job. I had fun. I actually expected a bit of backlash to me saying that, as if I shouldn't be normalising such work. Work that's hard and thankless. But then most of the jobs that you lot said that you liked were hardly highfalutin career choices. They were things like stacking shelves, working in a warehouse, cleaning and hospitality and customer service. And if we listen to much of the mainstream narrative around work, and autism for that matter, that really shouldn't be the case. Because people don't want to work these days, do they? The primary argument against increasing benefits, against supplying people with the necessary resources to live, against ideas like UBI, is that people simply wouldn't work anymore. People would become lazy and entitled and would just sit around doing absolutely nothing, and society would crumble. Innovation would cease. Creativity itself would be no more. There is a common thought on the right, and let's face it, the centre too, that capitalism breeds innovation. And you know, in many ways they're right. Never before has society innovated so many elaborate ways to destroy the environment and avoid oversight. But if I think back on the entire history of humanity, from these monkey-looking guys with their crude tools, to these monkey-looking guys and their culture-destroying propaganda machines, I'd say some progress has been made along the way. Dare I say some innovation has occurred over the millennia. I mean, we learn all about the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age. People were literally digging in dirt to find the materials to build the stuff they needed. The things they wanted. There's been several points throughout history that has led to a rapid expansion in progress, points such as the invention of the needle and thread. This allowed humans to make clothes that could actually fit around their bodies, and this allowed them to hunt further into the year, to stay out in colder and colder weather, to chase after prey without their furs flapping around, tripping them up. Agriculture led to towns and cities, allowing people to stay in one place over time instead of following the seasons, plants and prey. It allowed for stability and progress, and also things like plagues and fascism. But the point is, there is no point in human history where we were not progressing, developing, creating, working. At no single point. Work predates employment, it predates wages, it predates the very concept of laziness itself, and it certainly, without a doubt, predates capitalism. The fact that some people can attribute to a couple hundred-year-old system the entire concept of human innovation with a straight face is something I will never get over. These people think they're smart. They think they're serious grown-ups. We have always created, we have always invented, we have always worked. There is no evidence that an increase in benefits makes people lazy, is there? No. He's looked into it. In places where things like UBI has been tried, it has showed that people use the extra income responsibly, and that people with very low income still show restraint in their spending habits, using the UBI for essentials. And importantly, the existence of UBI seems to have absolutely no impact on the recipient's likelihood to work. Every single argument made by conservatives about things like benefits and UBI turn out to be pure bunk when the evidence comes in. But I don't need statistical evidence of UBI trials to know this. As I said, you can simply look at the entire history of human progress. You can simply read the comments on my last video. That's science.
I work meat department in a big box store. A good chunk of my job keeps me in the cooler, picking, pulling, and processing boxes. When I am on the sales floor, I hardly have to talk with customers. Best job I've ever had.
The best day of my life at work was when they told me to fill up as many balloons as possible within 3 hours. It was amazing.
I've enjoyed one job in my life, and it was sweeping up at a movie theater when I was like 17.
The tasks that were given to me as punishments, or stuff that the rest of the staff hated doing, were among my favorite things to look forward to. Washing dishes at Taco Bell, reorganizing pallets, or the few times I was asked to organize the area that held the rack sections at Walmart.
I worked at Starbucks for 4 years in the early 2000s. I loved working the opening shift and morning rush on the espresso bar. I had over 200 regular customers' names and drinks memorized.
I'm currently a courier for one of the major shipping companies, and it's the best job I've ever had.
I actually loved working as a cashier, but just a cashier. The beep of the scanner as I scanned each barcode felt so satisfying. But also, my ADHD liked the challenge and variation from customer to customer. It was a game.
The best job I think I've ever had. I was a bicycle messenger for a local high-end convenience store chain. My interactions with people, including my coworkers, were as much or as little as I pleased. I was also given complete freedom to arrange the order of delivery, and I had complete freedom to take whichever path I pleased. I could just zone in and ride my bike.
The only job I've been able to keep down is my current one, which is a house cleaner. I really enjoy it, because I usually get the same houses, get to know all the pets, the clients are all very nice, and I can just listen to podcasts the whole time.
Your description of working at that cafe is one-to-one my experience working at Five Guys, and I stayed in that job for 8 years. Food prepping to loud rock music at 6 a.m, solo bacon grilling for hours, just vibing through lunch rushes with a full grill. My only real customer interaction was shouting order numbers and the quick friendly handover. Meanwhile, lasted all of a month working phones for a bank, even from home. Absolute nightmare.
Putting things on shelves at supermarkets was a really good job for me. Minimally social, and I love jobs where you can see the progress you are making through the shift.
I work in a cafe, and my favorite shift is the morning rush. 90% the same people ordering the same drinks at the same time, and I get to just stand at the coffee machine and make drinks for hours. It's great. Even doing the till isn't bad, as long as I can stick to the script. Hate working the floor, though.
Some of these jobs are the kinds of jobs that parents use as a threat to their kids. If you don't knuckle down, you'll end up stacking shelves or cleaning toilets. They're the exact jobs that people say won't get done if we provide people with the means of survival. That's not to say these are dream jobs to which people want to dedicate all their time, but that they can be enjoyable activities. I've always thought that cleaning offices or private residences sounded like a pretty nice gig. If you could pop on some headphones, be by yourself in a routine. I always kept an eye out for cleaning work, but you usually had to have your own transportation, and that's something that I usually didn't have. And when it comes to sanitation in particular, because that's always the example they use, isn't it? I think it's clear that as a society, we appreciate cleanliness and order when it comes to our towns and cities, our public infrastructure, our plumbing. People cleaned long before cleaner was a job you could get. The viral emergence of cleaning content on TikTok underscores this appreciation. There are loads of cleaners out there giving their services for free because they can get paid in TikTok revenue, and that allows them to help people who need help, who can't pay and who have become overwhelmed. And volunteering is a thing. There were a few comments on my last video from people who said that their favourite jobs were volunteer jobs. And even if you're volunteering in a charity shop or something, there's still going to be some dirty jobs to do. Going through the bags of clothes, cleaning toilets, but people still enjoy doing it for free. Sanitation is absolutely necessary work. So is the manufacturing, organisation and distribution of resources. All of it is fundamental to the functioning of a society. People would die if not for these things. And yet these things are so utterly degraded by society that parents use the existence of these jobs as a threat to their kids. And this isn't me getting all Soviet about stuff. I think we all saw the hypocrisy during the height of the pandemic, when key essential workers had to go into work. They had no choice because they were essential. The governments admitted it. They'd have naught to govern if not for these workers. And yet you still have people going on about how these workers don't deserve a living wage because they're all so terribly unskilled.
Pay workers with no skills a lower minimum wage.
And why business owners? Rising minimum wage could cripple us.
Not all work is valuable enough in the job market to be compensated a living wage. And you penalize unskilled workers trying to get into the job market with wage restrictions.
This is essential work, fundamental to the functioning of society. And yet these people think that the people who do that work should be threatened with destitution, forced into poor conditions, and are unworthy of respect, unworthy of security. And often this work is poorly paid, dangerous, offers few rights. The corporations and governments in charge don't really view the workers as essential. They know that the work is essential, but the human beings doing that work, they're disposable. Capitalism requires there to be an underclass of working poor at all times, not because if there wasn't, nobody would do the dirty jobs, but because if people were not at risk of destitution, they could demand fair pay, safe conditions, and robust rights. And if society gave this work the respect it deserves, well then maybe that also might make things better for the workers. Maybe people wouldn't make such a mess of the public bathrooms. Maybe people wouldn't disrespect, abuse, and assault the people who are doing the work that we all rely on, but few people respect. Because few people respect the time of hospitality, logistics, and sanitation workers. You know, I used to work in Wanaka in the South Island of New Zealand, absolutely stunning part of the world. Home to the most photographed tree in the Southern Hemisphere, I think. Maybe the world, who knows? Nah, it's got to be that one in California, hasn't it? And I hated it. It looked like this, and I couldn't stand the place. At that time, it was home to the highest percentage of millionaires. So like it wasn't a very big town, there wasn't that many people who lived there permanently. It's just that a lot of them were really rich. And I've never met such a miserable lot. I had to stand there and listen to them whine on about how all the immigrants who were coming here, living here temporarily, were clogging up the place. Swimming in the way of their jet skis or something, I don't know. Stood there pouring their wine for them while they tell me why they think that people like me should fuck off. If Wanaka didn't attract tourists and international workers, people chasing ski seasons, the place would be a backwater. There would be no lakeside strip of restaurants and bars for you to spend your miserable days getting drunk in. I've seen other small towns in the South Island of New Zealand, there's fuck all there. Look, if you go to New Zealand, do a road trip around the south, it's beautiful, but spend most of your time in the north. Trust me. If you know, you know. In my last video, I talked about how at my barista position, the coffee machine and the music from the speakers behind me acted as a kind of barrier between myself and the chaos of the cafe, and the minimal interactions that I had to have with customers, and how that really helped me. And it's true, because customers, you guys, you can be a challenge. Not all customers, but it only takes one or two to ruin a shift. And the disrespect of your time can be flabbergasting. It's a good word, isn't it? Flabbergast. Degast your flabber. Now look, I do realise that it's unfair to expect you to make such an important decision on such little information. But do you realise that while you're asking me these long, drawn-out questions about items on the menu, there is food for this section on the pass going cold, pissing off the chef, pissing off all the other customers around you and pissing off the chef, taking up room on the pass, annoying all the other wait staff and pissing off the chef. It's quite a predicament you're putting me in while you're asking me what random items on the menu are instead of Googling it.
What is aioli and why does it come with everything?
Again, New Zealand. If you know, you know. And of course, I'm not talking about people asking about dietary requirements. I'm talking about the kinds of people who always ask to see the wine list, fully knowing that they're going to order the house red. I'm talking about the kinds of people who stand at a busy bar and order things one by one. I'm talking about the kinds of people who, when you ask, is there anything else I can get for you, there always bloody is. Wanaka was up a mountain in the middle of a country in the South Pacific, and one day this guy asked me if the Atlantic cod had been freshly caught today. And I was like, I think I said like, probably not, like trying to be polite. And he made me go to the kitchen to make sure. And then when I came back and was like, yeah, no, we buy it in frozen, he was all like, well, that's not very good, is it? But I actually liked a lot of my customers over the years. Most of the regulars were sound. Some of them were autistic. The ones who came in at the same time every day and ordered the same thing and sat in the same place. I was definitely getting some autism vibes from some of them. I don't remember the face of the man who asked me about the cod, or the family who kept clicking their fingers at me anytime I was even remotely close to them, or the man who screamed at me for being a stupid girl in front of his wife and 2 small kids, or the woman who tried to get me fired because she found one of her own hairs in her food. It was literally like this long and bright orange, and there was only one of us around with that. But I remember the elderly ladies who would come into the cafe every day and ask me about my life and tell me about theirs. I remember the old man who'd come and sit at the bar and tell me about the Chinese economy and why nobody understands it. I remember the writer who gave me a copy of his fantasy novel, Ray? I've still got it, it's on the shelf. I remember the NASA teams who would come by Wanaka anytime they were doing something in the South Pole. I remember Eileen, the glamorous older lady who would come and tell me tales of the Auckland theatre scene. I remember the kind couple who gave me cardigans because I didn't have any winter clothes. Those customers brought me joy. I genuinely cared about them, and I think they genuinely cared about me. Well, not the NASA guys, that was just cool. But work can be a valuable source of community for those who might struggle to find it. It can also be the opposite of that, of course. It can be a harmful thing that takes you away from your community and destroys your health. But this video is about what we should expect from work. And we should expect work to be sustainable, if not enjoyable. In the best cases, your customers and colleagues can form a strong and tangible support base. You can make lifelong friends who will stick with you through thick and thin. I used to really want to work in a library, and not just because it's ordering books into a logical order in an environment which is quiet on purpose, but because I saw librarians as people who were in the centre of their community. They helped people. In my mind, it was less customer service and more community building. Of course, it can be really hard to work customer service while autistic, because so many of the disabling aspects of autism are to do with socialising and communication. Our flat affect can be an issue for customers. I got told off numerous times for failing to smile enough, for looking miserable. I mean, if I'm out on the floor and I've just been yelled at by some douche, then no, I'm not gonna smile at the next table I serve. Sorry, but I can't. Your food will taste the same though. And I know there's going to be people out there who are waiting to type that I shouldn't be working customer service if I'm not prepared to put in the emotional labour that is required for the role. But I disagree with the premise. I don't think customer service should require such emotional labour. I believe that any service worker should be able to refuse service to anyone who is even slightly disrespectful to them. I don't think we should force people to paint on a smile when they've just been dehumanised. I worked in hospitality for a total of over 10 years. As I said in my last video, I could run a bar with my eyes closed. I can do hospitality work. I can even do customer service work. When I can expect to be respected as a human being, when I know that the interaction probably isn't going to end in my job being threatened, or someone shouting at me, judging me, insulting me, grabbing me, when I am given space to communicate and my role is respected, I'm actually very good at customer service too. Not in an American way, of course. Never in my life have I called a fellow adult sir. And I'm not one for pretending to be thrilled to see every new customer who walks through the door. But then again, I've never had to rely on tips. American service workers put more into customer service because they have to. And then American customers expect more, and it becomes a vicious cycle of strained smiles and passive aggression. And sometimes actual aggression. I'm not sure I would survive long in many service jobs in the United States. I lost jobs because I couldn't hide my autism long enough to keep British customers happy. And I was never reliant on tips. My health insurance was never tied to my employment. Like if you're a waitress in the United States and you get like a really big table come in, that could be your only table for the shift. And then if they don't tip because you didn't smile enough or whatever, like how devastating would that be? When a society treats jobs as unworthy of respect or proper pay, it encourages the public to mistreat the workers doing those jobs. And when it comes to customer service, autistic workers are going to become a target for cruel and abusive customers and managers, because we may simply be unable to keep up with the increasing demands for completely unnecessary emotional labour. So if you're an employer or a union leader or even just a shift supervisor, and you want to keep your autistic workers happy and safe, you will provide them with space to get away from customers when they need to. But you will also have their back when they are targeted for harassment. You will stand up for all of your workers in the face of abusive or even disrespectful customers. People who work in places where there's better rights and pay feel less need to pander to abusive customers. And if society respects the work, there will be fewer abusive customers. Nobody should need to work to have their basic needs for survival met. That stuff can and should be provided to everyone for free. And when that threat of destitution is lifted, workers have more freedom to take more control, to fight for better conditions, to unionise and demand the respect and ownership that they deserve. But autistic workers, already grappling with social nuances, find themselves in precarious positions, exacerbated by difficult customers and unempathetic managers. They need the solidarity of managers and colleagues right now. In amongst all those stories of jobs that people liked were stories of jobs lost when the autistic worker could no longer hide their autism. We shouldn't have to hide our autism, and many autistic people can't mask, not for any length of time. People who are unable to mask at all are unlikely to even be considered for most positions. This is pure discrimination. This has nothing to do with a person's ability to do a job, and everything to do with their ability to navigate the ableist attitudes of employers and customers. Accessibility and inclusivity for disabled workers benefits all workers. Accessibility is a working class struggle. Most people will become disabled in their lives even if it's only temporary or through old age. Accessibility should be at the heart of all labour movements. All calls to revolutionise work, at the centre of all discussions about workers' rights. No job should be seen as beneath any other job. Except maybe whatever it is these guys are doing. But especially not the jobs upon which we all rely. And no person should be forced to choose between degrading and dangerous working conditions and complete ruin. But even without changes to benefit systems or workers' rights, we can all choose to respect workers right now, to respect different ways of being and diversity of personality. Employers could choose to create space in which neurodivergent and disabled workers can thrive, and customers can choose to treat all the workers they encounter with respect and a shred of common decency. I can't believe I'm having to resort to bribery. Thank you for watching. This video was brought to you by my patrons. Why are you being uncooperative? The people need you. Seriously, none of this would be possible without you. So if you want to join them, you should. You should sign up. You don't really get much. You get the occasional update from me, some stills from my videos. And you do get early access to videos, like a couple of days or something. I'm very grateful to my patrons because they don't really get much in exchange for their financial support. They really are just there to support me and this channel and the content that I make. And I couldn't be more thankful.